today I'm going to start off with a quote. Okay, so it's from Solzhenitsyn, and he says, "We know the lion. They know the lion. They know that we know that the lion. We know that they know that we know that they're lying, but they carry on lying." So, I'd heard that before, but it just came up on one of my feeds this morning, and it really resonated with me, because it's like, it just sums up what we're going through, like, not just in Spain or in the UK or in the US. It's just exactly what's going on. We're being lied to on all levels, and this isn't something that particularly is new to me, but I think it might be to some people. There are a lot of people who seem to go along with the establishment and just have them. And it takes something bizarre to happen to, like, not necessarily wake people up, but shake people up. And I kind of think that there's just lots of crazy going on right now, that people, if you can't see that you're being lied to and manipulated at every step, by government and the media, and just almost anything that you care to mention of anyone that's like any organisation about almost anything that's going on that you're getting told about. It's all manipulated, it's all lies. And the way we know this is just because to handle it, they can't even just come out and say, "You've said a lie. What you've just spoke about is untrue." It's like they bring up the term misinformation. That's like, nobody ever said misinformation until recently. It's just some kind of term that's getting bandied about. It's like, oh, that's just misinformation. No one uses the word lie anymore. You're lying, because they're not lies, and people don't seem to mind. What people pull you up about is like, do you realise that your rhetoric is anti-establishment? It's like, yeah, so. We're in some kind of bizarre point where, being anti-establishment is like actually questioning what the establishment is about and stands for. Puts you in the same category as like a Holocaust denier. And even that was just such a, you really pull the fast one with Holocaust denying. I mean, because it's kind of easy to do, because let's face it, most people who are Holocaust deniers, it's not that they're actually saying, I'm not quite sure if the historical facts actually are true. There's a big thing behind it. There's a big anti-Semitic push towards it. And Michael Malice once said the thing with, like, what he's noticed about Holocaust deniers is that they deny that that it actually occurred historically, but they generally think that would have been a really good idea if it did. Like Michael Malice is Jewish. So there's the whole manipulation of just like the zeitgeist, Holocaust denier, vaccine denier, climate denier. I mean, at least Holocaust denier makes the term makes sense. There's like a historical thing that happened. Some people think that it didn't. They are denying the existence or the occurrence of a specific historical event, a specific hypothetical historical event, and that's why they are called Holocaust deniers. Whereas, what do you mean with climate denial? Is there anyone out there that's like, I don't believe in the climate? There's no such thing as, well, that's not like, it's not exactly space is fake type of crazy, you know what I mean? It's like, and the whole, this new thing that gets bandied about so easily, which I find actually a bit offensive. The science is settled, shut your mouth. So like, as someone who actually has done proper science, who's done research, you can't just say science is settled, shut your mouth, because that's the whole reason you're doing research in the first place, is because you're either confirming some kind of hypothesis, or you're, a lot of good work is being done by overturning paradigms, overturning the settled science. And the very thought that like you just can't question something that was settled science is ridiculous. It's just, I just can't believe that we can, people say that to you. I mean, during COVID, there were lots of things that were said that were just untrue, and in fact were commonsensically untrue just before COVID. But suddenly, you weren't allowed, if you just like brought up like, thinking about, I don't know, the effectiveness of masks, or, even whether vaccinating during a pandemic is a good idea. It was just, you're some kind of crazy. And so you get to the point, I got to the point very quickly during that whole debacle of, I know the lion, and they know the lion, and they know that we know that the lion, and it's just, it just goes on anyway, and where does it break down? When does it, what gets that to just carry on ad infinitum? Surely it's the fact that there are some people who don't know that the lion. I mean, is that the bit? Because, if we're as I go on about all the time, I'm an anarchist. But I'm not saying that I don't believe that there should be, order to society, but I think that should be, it should be on a voluntary basis. And the way to do that is to actually have people take responsibility for their own lives. And because, I'm pretty sure that most people actually want to live in a structured, ordered society. But there's no virtue to that if it's all done by violence and force. I don't understand why people think that there's any virtue in the state having a monopoly on everything and forcing people to live in a certain way, and stealing money, because tax is theft. It's not like some kind of clever catchphrase. It is, because if someone takes something from, if someone is going to take something from you, whether you consent to it or not, then that's theft. You know, the whole like, I'm gonna take this off you, whether you wanna or you want me to or not, and you go, no, it's fine. They've still stolen it from him. So there's no virtue to the way that we're living. You know, we're not in alignment with, you know, with natural law. I mean, people can say, you know, natural law isn't enough because whatever. You know, I don't buy that. But people, I don't understand how anyone can actually think that laws can be moral and virtuous if they're just based on violence. You know, we're building something with bad foundations, and I don't believe that the ends justify the means. I mean, that's just such a trick, a semantic trick. You know, it's up there with when people say the biggest trick of the devil was to have you believe that he doesn't exist. You know, these are just like arguments that you can't, if they're just said as absolutes, then there's no room, there's no wiggle room. You can't just, you know, if someone believes it, then you can't get out, you can't get around it, it's so dogmatic. And it's just so dogmatic to say that the ends justify the means. I mean, says who? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just crazy. And what's also crazy is that people, I think this is just like a general human trait, that people assume, I think people just assume that everyone thinks the same way that they do. And it's like, it's kind of, I think I'm exposed to it much more because like, I don't live in the country that I was born in. So if I have like an opinion that other people don't share with me, they assume that's because like, well, you know, I'm not properly Spanish or something. But that used to happen in England as well. It's like, well, he's not properly English, is he? Because, you know, he's got a foreign name and all that. And so I've observed this, just but like in like trivial situations where like you have something like if you ask someone, how do you make a roast dinner? And so what they'll tell you is how their mum made a roast dinner, like generally. And so if you've got several people, so if someone's like foreign and says, in Britain, how do you make a roast dinner? And someone pipes up and says, this is the definite way, the definitive way that you do it. Now if there's someone else there whose mum does it different than the other, like guy's mum, then they'll go, no they don't, that's not right. And then you suddenly get into this, what was like the settled science suddenly like has got other things, and you know, no one actually thinks that there is no definitive way to make anything. But it kind of, it exposes that, and like I've had, where I saw this like when I was, it's quite typical in Spain to eat at lunchtime, like you all go to a restaurant together, you know, like with you. I've done that in several places that I've worked. And so I think I was eating a salad or something, and you know, you dress your salad in Spain, so you put some oil on it and maybe some vinegar if you like, and some salt. And to be honest, I don't know, I don't have a fixed way of doing it. It generally tends to be the first thing I can get my hands on, I'll put that on, and then the other one, I'll put that on, and then I put some, I always put the salt on last so it doesn't get all washed away to the bottom, but that's just me. And I did whatever, and the guy sat next to me said, oh, you dress your salad the opposite way. that we do in Spain. Because in Spain we do blah, whatever. And I was just about to say, I don't actually have any way of dressing the salad. But then the guy next to me said, no, we didn't. That's exactly how we dress a salad in Spain. And I just like kind of sat back and just I watched them go at it. And it's kind of, you know, it's like this happens all the time, and it's only most people, as you might have guessed, don't go around asking everyone's opinion about everything all the time. We're not in the habit of confirming what other people think about everything all the time. And you know, it's just as well because there aren't hours in the day to do it. So you just kind of, you assume that your local, you know, the people that you're with are aligned with you about everything. You know, I think that's just the way it just tends to happen like that. People assume that everyone agrees with them about everything, and they don't. But it doesn't actually come to a head unless, you know, there's some kind of, if something must happen, you know, so, you know, obviously we're all agreed that we've all got to do X, and that's, you know, when someone says, well, see, maybe I don't want to, and then it's suddenly, you know, assumptions are getting challenged, and people get, you know, people feel strongly about things that they didn't feel strongly about like 5 minutes earlier. And that was just like one of the things that happened with COVID. And it wasn't just, you know, whether people should be forced into medical treatments or should be forced to isolate or, you know, should lose the job if you don't want to, or, you know, the whole thing sort of like split off really quickly, you know, and you know, things would like divide and divide and divide, and you know, but it would all come under the whole thing. Everyone thought that what they were doing was just like completely common sense, and of course we think this, why wouldn't we think this? All of this thing is completely settled. And it's, you know, most things, I'd say that most things outside of, you know, basic physical laws are generally still up for debate. I mean, even when there's something like, you talk about like gravity, there's still debate about, you know, what the mechanism for it is. Everyone agrees that, you know, if you drop something, it's going to fall, and it'll fall at a known rate. You know, that's been established for like hundreds of years. No one can debate, you know, that's not up for debate. But there are people who like talk about, well, you know, gravity isn't real. It's the electric universe. And like you're saying, well, that doesn't seem to make sense. But they don't argue at the fact that if I have something, no matter what it is, and I drop it, that it falls at like 9.81 meters per second. You know, that's just, no one's going to argue with that, because that's exactly what we observe, and that's exactly, you know, if your observations don't match your hypothesis, then it's wrong. It's just wrong. Not your observations, your theory is wrong. Yet for lots of other things with settled science, just because your observations don't match your theory, we don't throw away the theory. And so I don't think that there's anyone who's going to say, for instance, that methane and carbon dioxide, the composition of the atmosphere, that doesn't alter the climate. I don't think anyone's actually saying that. But what the actual settled science really does say is that carbon dioxide isn't the thermometer, isn't the thermostat for the climate, because we've actually got lots and lots of record. You know, we can track. I mean, obviously through proxies, but you know, we can track the temperature of the Earth, and we also know, you know, what the composition of the atmosphere was. I mean, at least to within, you know, like 10% or something. We can do that. And you know, there are times in the past where there was massive amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and it wasn't as hot. You know, or there was other times when it was like really hot, like, you know, several degrees hotter than it is now, and there was much less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. You know, these are real objective facts. You know, if there's ever, you know, it's not that the science is settled, but you know, there are certain measurements that point to like objective realities. And so, you know, the real red flag should be when you're not allowed to question something, there's something strange going on there. And so, you know, I'm not saying that people don't feel strongly about things, and so, you know, maybe even saying, you know, Holocaust denial is a bad thing because it's, you know, maybe the people who started with that were coming from like a place where they believed themselves that they were trying to do good. But we're not going to end up anywhere good as a society if we're not allowed to say things. And the thing is, you want to know who the nutters are. I mean, you really do. What you don't want is people meeting up in secret to say like the crazy stuff. You know, if you actually care about society and about humanity and about where we're going to go with stuff, then you should be concerned with understanding what people think. Because if you don't, you can't. I'm going to put this. Like the way that the state is always, right now it's the biggest monopoly, and it is always going to be able to control the dialogue much easier than dissenters can. But especially if they put the mechanisms of, if you dissent, then you are crazy. You know, that's where it comes from. It's been popularized by the state. You know, the term conspiracy theorist was created by the CIA, and it was all to do with discrediting people, like questioning the JFK assassination. And you know, I don't think that. I mean, does anyone seriously believe the official narrative of the JFK assassination? I mean, you've got to just be beyond naive. You know, it doesn't. You know, and that just. If you can't question that, if you can't even get that far, then you know. You don't even have a right. I mean, the whole point is, if we just. It always gets down, no matter, I start off talking about things, and then I'll go off into like, so now I'm going on about, you know, JFK and whatever, and you know, and how can someone believe this, and it all just boils down, like every time I talk about everything, it always ends up boiling down to the fact that you've got no right, there's no right outside of yourself to control what other people say. So, if there are conspiracies, the truth will out just by people being able to talk. It's only by, like, you know, the stigma being attached to, you know, having certain opinions and saying certain things. That's how you get people to be quiet, because there are a lot of people out there who just want to go along and get on, and I don't want to know, or in fact the worst thing is people who just don't even think about it, who don't think about anything. And what I find is, like, the less time someone's actually thought about something, like the more violently they'll defend it. And it's like, it's exactly the thing when we talk about anarchy and, you know, the state. I don't think that the state is a good thing. And it's like people who have literally spent 0 seconds thinking about it just go, what? But what about the roads? You know, they haven't. What about all the money that we pay in taxes? And it's like, hold on, but if there was no state, you wouldn't pay taxes anyway. Who would you pay taxes to? But then, what about all the poor people? And it's like, well, there's poor people now. You know, you don't think that people wouldn't, you know, as horrible as it sounds, but if people don't want to help the poor, then they shouldn't help the poor, and they shouldn't be forced to, because there's no virtue in forcing, stealing money to help the poor. I mean, where do you think you are, Robin Hood or something? You know, and it's just, and don't forget, Robin Hood was taking the money from the state and giving it to the poor. So that got twisted a bit as well, didn't it? Because he wasn't just some kind of thief. You know, there was lots of poor. And what was he doing? Well, it was, you know, he was taking it off the nobles, off the state. So, it just everything gets twisted, everything. And the thing is, we know that they lie, and they know that we know that they lie. So like, it doesn't matter, you can look at any, you know, all political discourse is a lie. Because they're never telling you exactly the way it is. Because the way it goes, you know, we've got into this kind of mindset where we think that there are two sides to everything. And there are, you know, why two? Well, because you need two sides of the house and, you know, two wings of politics. And it's just there because it's the most efficient way to divide people. Because that's what you want. You don't really want to divide people into, like, you know, tiny little bits and then nothing works. You just want two almost equal blocks. And the way people fall into these things, it's almost arbitrary anyway. It's not like, you know, people will say, oh, well, you know, I'm left wing because, and they'll tell you why, but what it really is just, it's probably about as coherent as why they support a certain football team, because it's probably got something to do with what the granddad did, or maybe what the dad did, or, you know, it's just, and that's why people have certain political convictions, because they just grew up in a household that's like, well, we think that, you know, we should redistribute wealth, or us, and well, we think that, you know, people should just like get off the backside and go and work, but everyone thinks that there should be a state. You know, that's not, we can't question that. And the way it works is that people are conditioned to think that they have opinions when they don't. They're just repeating stuff. And that's just how the trick works. That's how it works. Anyway, I'm done. I've had my rant. It's like I started off, you know, Fran lunch because I'm trying to encourage people to actually take control of their lives. Because if they do take control of their lives and take control of their health, then they're more likely to actually be able to think things through and, you know, be rational. But I'm not sure that people, you know, when you see like most of the health content on YouTube, it's almost all about the quick fix and, you know, take this or hack your brain, or, and you know what, it doesn't work. It's not, you're not going to get anywhere by thinking that you can hack your way around stuff. And it's the same way, you can't just like put in, you know, the right person who'll just fix everything. It's just, you can't. It's not about that. And it's so beyond that. You know, it's laughable. That's why, you know, politics is just, it's not there. People think that it's there to help people, and it's not. It's there to just, it's it's bread and circus. That's all it is. And, you know, if you just think about all the things that are going on and all the bad things, it's all down to politics. You know, the war in Ukraine, no matter what side you're on, I mean, it's just such, no matter what you think about, you know, who's to blame or whatever, it's just such a terrible situation that is just getting prolonged on purpose, and everybody knows that. Or everyone who's actually cared to look into it knows it. And that's another thing. There are lots of opinions about it, like, oh, you know, Putin this and all this, and it's like, you know, Scott Horton's just brought out a book called Provoked, and I haven't read it yet because it's only just come out, but I'm looking forward to reading it. And it's just basically it goes through like the timeline, but from like 20 years before it even started. And you know, it's just such a bad thing that we're in right now. But anyway, I don't mean to end on a downer, but you know, the way to change this is like individuals making the choice. You know, that's the only way, and it's not by going to vote. You know, vote harder. Doesn't work. So keep up the good fight. No, but we can, this can be fixed, but it can't be fixed by the nerfed, you know, tools that they give us. It's not going to work like that. So look after yourself. Eat good food. Those mushrooms I picked from the garden this morning. So if this is my last video, yeah, I made a mistake there. Anyway, see you around.